Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, students. I'm Joanne Teo, the course instructor for Com 245 Online Journalism at BTP School of Communication and Information at NTU. I'm so pleased to be with you this morning and to have the privilege to introduce our guest speaker, Professor Mindy McAdams. Dr. McAdams is a professor at the University of Florida, USA, where she teaches courses about online journalism. She's the author of the book Flash Journalism, How to Create Multimedia News Packages. And her online multimedia guide has been in use in a couple of our courses at NTU, including this one. Professor McAdams has trained more than 200 journalists at leading American newspapers and newspaper associations in multimedia skills. She has also trained the Nieman Fellows at Harvard University and conducted journalism training and presentations all around the world. She's presently here in Asia as a Fulbright Senior Scholar at the Padjandjaran University in Bandung, Indonesia. A true multimedia guru, Professor McAdams has worked in media organizations for 17 years, including the Washington Post and Time magazine. And now to speak to us on taking news stories to the next level, please welcome Professor Mindy McAdams.
Thanks. I'll be sitting over here because I don't have a PowerPoint. I am going to show you a few examples of multimedia, and they're very recent examples. I think they were all published in 2011. Yeah, a couple early in 2011, a couple later, but they're quite different from one another. So I'd like to sort of demonstrate some features for you, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about whether they're very effective for an audience or not, right? We can think about, apart from whether we think these are really cool or not, are they really reaching an audience? And I've found out from what I've seen so far, some of these will not really play. The connection is too slow. You know, in the US on fast broadband, they will play the video and so forth, but here, you know, maybe the internet is a little bit clogged up today or something, but some of these things will not play properly. They just stop and start and stop and start. So, of course, that's a consideration when you're building things. A lot of, even my colleagues in multimedia at my university, they like to do everything in high definition when they do video. And recently we had this discussion where somebody was saying, oh, I want them to only shoot in high def video, even if they're using like a cheap point and shoot camera. And I said, and then you've got this big hunkin' file, and it's a pain to edit, and people can't play it when you upload it. So I would rather have people shoot low-res video so that the audience can watch it. But I run into a lot of arguments with my colleagues about that, particularly those who are in documentary video. They want to do everything in high def, and I want to strangle them because I present in developing countries and nothing will play. So I need to sit over here to run the show here. So my first example, actually I'll hop up a lot. This is from the Los Angeles Times newspaper. They have a fantastic website. If you think newspaper websites are boring, or you only know the New York Times website, you should look at the LA Times because they have quite a lot of good stuff. And this is a package that they published last year about victims of gang violence. You know, unfortunately, in my country, I'm never really a good advertisement for my country because I always show these presentations about violence and crime. But some of our best multimedia is made about our problems, right? Our journalists pay attention to what's wrong with the country so we can fix it. They don't just do happy little stories. So this story tried to put a human face on some of the victims of shootings. There's a lot of gun violence in my country, and Los Angeles is one of the worst places. So the Los Angeles Times has made it their mission to cover this violence relentlessly and to never let it go to the back page. So this was a different, they have maps and they cover these crime reports all the time, and they cover the people who do the violence. But this was a little different project. This time they went for the innocent victims, the people who are not a member of a gang, the people who were just the innocent bystander when a bullet flew somewhere. And I want to try to play the introductory video. I can't play the whole thing because it's 15 minutes, but it's quite good. But even if we can play the first minute without going crazy because it's stopping and starting, it's quite good. And I can show you some of the photos and the interface without video, but I'm going to see if we can get the video to play properly for us. And if it starts and stops a lot, the reason is because it is a high-def video. And the bandwidth, you just don't have the bandwidth, or maybe the internet's clogged up right now. So come on. Oh, sorry, I turned the sound on.
I got shot 4 times.
It was my grandma's birthday. I came out outside and then I got shot in the head.
I think the worst part is just the idea of seeing that gun in his face.
That's when we heard like 4 to 5 gunshots.
All I remember telling her at that point was, "Baby, please don't leave me. I need you."
She never regained conscious. She was gone, like instantly. How bad could hell be? If this is what's going on, killing and raping and robbing and just, this must be it.
That's why I asked that question. Why did you shoot him? Prince?
He was playing quarterback, running back, defensive back, running back, kickoffs, punts. It was real that, yeah, we got one. I told myself, man, you're the total package. Coaches started coming. Stanford came to LA High. Texas was there. Rutgers called me personally. This is just too good. This is just perfect. Everything is set for you. You're gonna have a good life. I was really happy for him. He was murdered 35, 40 steps from where he was at to the front door. I mean, he was there. I'm sure he probably felt, hey, I'm home. I'm on my street. This is where I was born at. I was raised on this street. He didn't think that he would be murdered on that street.
Just to see the one you love shot in the head, it's horrible, just so horrible. And to be there when he was born and to be there when he was murdered, it just was a horrible, horrible time.
Okay, so this video, this is the introduction to the package. The package is not only a video, and I'm going to show you the other things in the package there are still photos as well with captions. But they gave us a really long video, but I think you might feel like you want to watch more of it, even though it's really sad, right? So you're not bored. And we have watched 2 minutes. Usually I'm bored by 2 minutes. In most journalism videos, whether they're from TV, documentary, or newspapers, I mean, I am ready to quit. At 2.5, I usually quit. Even if it's a 3-minute video, I'm just done, right? I mean, I'm telling well, first I watch a lot of these. I watch a lot, and my students make a lot, So when we make video, especially for the web, I mean, if it's not compelling, people are just going to leave. They have the whole web to go to. It's not like TV where they leave it on. And so first, I think that this is quite a good example of video that holds your attention. Secondly, you might wonder why they did it in black and white. They did this whole package in black and white. And my students, they don't really like black and white. They prefer color. They've grown up with color. They don't have a big appreciation for black and white photography. But a lot of photographers, both photojournalists and other kinds of photographers, sometimes they like to choose black and white. And they can tell you their reasons for hours. They can bore you to death with their reasons. And I'm not sure about it. I don't mind it here. I feel this story is so compelling, I forget it's in black and white. And then some of the pictures, I know the typical explanation that most photojournalists give is sometimes they shoot in black and white because they think the color is distracting. So I think maybe with this being such an emotional story, that might have been their reason. So now this is within the main page, and you see how big it is. I didn't blow this up. I didn't even go full screen on it. You can go full screen, but we're almost full screen on the size of this projection anyway. But it is high def, it goes really big, and it still looks beautiful. So we're just right on the main page with a text article, right? There's no junk. I mean, the LA Times considers their readers. They don't give you junk like click to see page 2, click to see page 3, to cheaply attract page views. You know, that's so sleazy. I'm very opinionated. So I think, you know, part of what the LA Times is doing right, although I would like to see some subheadings in here. That would make it easier for me to stick with it. They allow comments. They moderate the comments. They do not allow, although there's this ha 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 thing in here, but they do not allow comments that are racist and sexist and full of swear words. They go in and delete them after the fact. Right? Anyway, they handle comments very well, but the way they put this package together, and it's connected to this, they have a giant section on crime. I told you they cover the violence aggressively and daily. They cover every single gun murder in the country with a story on the website. They don't have room in the printed paper. But they write a story about every death by gun, every single one, even when they're just gangbusters, you know. Gangbangers, sorry, gangbangers. You know, they find out something about that person and they try to get a photo, so they cover everything. But the rest of this package, I promise you, there's not just video. And let me show you the credits too. You know, this is not a one-person operation. When you're making a beautiful, deep project like this, a lot of people work on it. And remember, you're looking at a newspaper website. Right? This is produced by newspaper people in a newspaper newsroom. It's not outsourced to some TV people. So we can close up the credits again. But back to the main. All right. They chose a variety of victims. And I told you, these are all people who are not involved in gangs. So they chose victims who are innocent. But they chose, and you already saw some of them in the opening. You saw that little boy, that little tiny boy. He has a big scar on his head. One of these videos is about him. I think this one. I think this one. But I'm going to show you this one because if the video, well, if the video will play, we'll watch just a little bit of that, and then show you how the photos also help to tell the story. Now, I had a little bit of problem with their selection of the font. Let's see how that looks from here. Yeah, because I always tell my students, and there have been studies on this, when you choose a typeface, a font for the web, the serif font, I hope you know enough typography to know serif and sans serif. Good, I see a lot of you nodding. This is serif. Serif is ideal for paper. Serif is very bad for online, and you can see why, can't you? It's kind of blurry and it's not sharp. It's hard to read. It's hard to read even on my nice Apple Mac screen when I'm up close to it. And that's not because of the computer, it's because serifs are difficult at a small size. If you make a big headline, serifs can be very pretty online. But for readability, and especially at this size, it is way too small to be using serifs. So, you know, again, you have to think of your audience. Some people just love serif fonts, right? Well, there's times when they're not appropriate. And I want to show, if this video will play, again, just like the beginning of it, so you can see it's got a different feel from the other one, but it's still trying to tell the story.
I can still smell the war, you know, the burning of tire and bullets and bodies. I can still smell it right now. We left the killing field in Cambodia just to end up in another killing field in America. It's different killing field, you know, but it's the same thing. People are still dying. When we went to the where the place she got shot in front of the school, there was like 30, 40 people already. It just showed
For you that what kind of person she is, and the love that she touch a lot of people, you know.
Okay, this is going to drive us crazy. Please me. But you get the idea, and now this is a much shorter video. This is under 3 minutes. Okay, when it plays well, it's also compelling. But each one of the ones called victims, those 6 that they picked, and they picked them very carefully, right, for diversity. They had black people, white people, and Asian people who were innocent victims. They had male and female, they had young and old. But they only gave us 6. And this is another really smart thing, okay? The third example I'm going to show you is going to contradict this. But often, if you want to really reach an audience, don't give them 100 things. When they see 100 things, they say, wow, that looks really good. I'll just bookmark that and come back later. And then they never come back, right? So if you make it look accessible with a small, very carefully selected set of items. So here we have exactly 6 victims. And then it's framed by the introductory video that we watched a little bit of that's quite long. And on the other side, there's a slideshow called Advocates that I'm not sure if it's always clear to people what that one's about, but in the middle, the heart of this particular package is the 6 stories about 6 individual human beings who were killed. And so this is one, and along with this story about Melody, this high school girl who was killed when she's standing around with her friends. Oh yeah, and sometimes I don't always know how to go back. All right, this is her. So we started the video, and then there's also a set of photos that you can see at your leisure. And so, you know, for people if the video is not working for them, they might want to do that. I don't know that these are always the most compelling videos. I am happy that they let me see the caption, but again, I think they have a font problem. I think they really needed to use sans serif and make sure it was sharper. And also, this application here, this package, it is in Flash. You can always tell if the package was done in Flash. If you right-click and a menu pops up and it says something about Flash Player, then it was done in Flash. If you right-click and a different kind of menu opens up that's sort of like copy, paste, and it doesn't say Flash at the bottom, then that package is not Flash. It's probably HTML5 and JavaScript, right? So it's sort of the new direction to which many things are going. But many current packages are still made in Flash, and I love Flash. I mean, you can do stuff in Flash so much faster than you can do it with JavaScript. I mean, just for that. But because Flash won't play on the iPad and the iPhone, thanks Steve Jobs, you know, there's this movement away from Flash for some things. But I wanted to show you that, and then the way, so you can scroll through these photos. And this one you saw. You saw the captions change each time. So I wanted to point out also, the photos in this story are actually redundant. They are the same photos that were used in the video. But by viewing the photos, it gives you a chance to spend time looking at them without the voiceover, and you get all the caption information. So again, that's a choice that the producers make. You know, is it the best one? Is it not the best one? I think for this story it works really well, because some of the captions provide a lot of interesting information. So that if you got really curious about one of these people, you could find out a lot more about their story. Like, how did this happen? Like the one with the little boy, you really want to know, you know, how did that little boy get shot, you know? So that's pretty much the whole package. You now see the overview of all its parts. It's 6 stories. This is a slideshow, and, oops, sorry. There it is. That's the long video we started to watch. Okay, and that takes us back to the main page where you can watch that video. And let's just make sure, I don't think I'm zoomed in. No. So this is the size. This it doesn't scroll off the screen. There's no scroll bar, but they make it nice and big and it fills the screen. And it's a very specific kind of story. I'm going to move on to my second example. Are there any questions or comments about this one? And remember the credits, right? Remember, I think it's always pretty useful for students to think about this. You know, who made this? And what kind of people? I love it that they list the copy editors. because copy editors do a really important job, fact checking and so forth. And nowadays in big multimedia operations, they give credit. One guy did the flash, a different person did the web design, right? So students who would like to do this kind of work, often you can learn a lot by looking at the credits. I highly recommend looking at the credits on these big packages. Okay, the next one I want to show you comes from the Associated Press. And on a big screen, like, when you have like full resolution, not projector resolution, this is quite tiny in size. But the AP and Reuters, when they make packages, they often do make the size of the physical screen real estate of the package, they make it really small. I think because their clients ask for that because they want to fit it in around all the ads. They want to put ads all over it. Anyway, again, I'm sorry, I'm so convenient. But this is a really, really, really excellent package about the earthquake and the nuclear crisis in Japan, which we're all familiar with. But this is like, just about everything you want to know is in here. And yet, just before I show you anything, look at this interface. Right? I mean, first you get a map that this is the beginning of it. This is where it starts. You get this map that orients you. And it does say roll over and click in case you can't figure that out, although I naturally roll over anything. I'm always disappointed if nothing happens. So you get lots of detail, but you didn't know that at first, right? So I think this package first, it shows us a really good intro that lets us know what is this about, lets us know there's lots of stuff here, but it doesn't overwhelm. It doesn't make us feel like we should bookmark and come back later, right? It's like, I can deal with this, this is just a map. Oh look, I mean, there's only 5 things up here, and one is images. Ooh, I might want to go straight to that, because I always like pictures myself. Right? And then I see, oh, this is actually 2 slideshows. They're actually narrated slideshows. This one is black and white. Again, these photographers and their love for black and white. This one is color. And let me just play a little bit of this. It's a little long. It's 4 minutes, but it actually goes pretty well. We won't look at the whole thing because we have limited time. Oh, play for me, come on.
これだけの大災害を受けて、土地はあるものの、またそこに行って生活するのかという、そういうね、思いをね、持ってる方が結構います。
It's hard to imagine what it was like before because all we saw was it, after the tsunami. What we understand, it was a town of 18,000 people, according to the mayor. It was a fishing town. It was famous for locally famous for its tasty octopus, and it was just a small town, between the hills. You're going down this road, and the first thing that you see are just debris on both sides of the road, wooden planks of houses, just piles and piles and piles of it, all the way up to the trees on both sides, and that just goes down as far as you can see.
And we've watched 1 minute of this video. Are you bored yet? Again, it's a well done video. It's the pictures are not quite as compelling as close-ups of people, but then again, in the disaster, the scope of that disaster was, sort of the largeness of it, which brings me to another really neat part of this package. This is the thing. This package became tweeted. This package was tweeted all around the web because of this one particular thing. This before and after is quite stunning. And this is the one. So this is what this particular bit of land looked like before, right? You see the fields. I don't know if they're paddy or other kind of vegetables or whatever. And you can zoom in. And, oh, you can't drag it. Oh yeah, you can zoom. So you can zoom in on different areas, right, like that. And then, even while you're still zoomed in, that's what it looked like after. I just think this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And I mean, this took a lot of work to, you know, because what you have to do is you have to go into the satellite photos from Google Earth, and you have to go back and get a day when it wasn't covered with clouds. And then you have to align the screen capture perfectly, so it's perfectly over top. So, I mean, this is something anybody can do with like Photoshop and Google Earth, but it takes time and patience to pick the right place. And let's see, and we're zoomed in, so we'd zoom out again. So like the same thing happens when you're all the way zoomed out. That's after. That's before. I mean, this poor area was just buried in water, right? And there are several of these. What is it? 6. It's taking a while. There we go. The airport one is pretty interesting. All right, so before, after. That's mud. Right? So, I mean, and you don't even need any caption, right? Just this really cool interface that anybody, I mean, my mom could figure this out, right? Oh, grab that thing and slide it, right? So it's not hard to use. And so we've only looked at images, we looked at before and after. Latest news was that map, but we didn't look at everything. So there's these two other sections actually are more like information graphics, right? So you go into each one and you actually get, there's a ton of information in here. That one was an animated infographic, and here's a slideshow, right? And as you spend a little time with this, I feel it becomes a bit addicting. You really want to spend this the first time I opened it up, and I certainly didn't mean to. Right? And I already had read all this news about this disaster. I mean, and I don't live in Japan. It's not like I really cared, but it just sucked me in. So I think this is an awesome, most packages that cover something with this much information and something of this scale, a huge disaster. I looked at so many packages about Hurricane Katrina in my own country, and none of them were as good as this. You know, and the AP made some of them, maybe they learned, maybe they hired new people. I'll show you the sources in a second. But the great success of this package, I mean, the number one thing that I recommend this package for is when you first come to it, you have no idea there's so much stuff in here. And as a result, you go inside. And it seduces you. And it keeps you there because it's so easy to use. And you never lose your place. You never get lost. You never know, you never say, how do I get back to the home page? Because those buttons at the top, they're always there. They're in the same place. They never hide. And you just like spend time and you go in, and it's varied, but each section is consistent. So this is like one of the best packages ever. You know, and I've been looking at this stuff since 1994. I mean, there wasn't even really a web yet. There was kind of a secret web in Tim Berners-Lee's office, but the rest of us didn't know about it yet. And it's like, this package really does it. It nails it. For a giant information package, it does so many things right. And it's got audio and video and photos and animated information graphics, all in this really tidy package that's not crowded, not overwhelming. So I really recommend this one. And I'll give you a link at the end so that you can just find all of these easily. Let's see. I know, I'm watching my time. Third one. This one was actually made by students at a U.S. university. Unfortunately, not mine. I would say we don't have my students organized well enough to do something like this yet. These guys had a big special grant. That's why they had the money. They've been doing a story every spring and fall for every spring and summer for 3 years. Their students go out and report a different story about power. So the overall project is called Powering a Nation. And last summer, summer 2001, their story was about coal power. Earlier stories were about other things. And they decided to really take a personal touch and And let's see how I have this. Okay. So the beginning of this looks like kind of a splash screen, right? But it does tell you what it's about. It gives you some idea. And if you scroll, they have laid out the entire package. You can access every single part of it from one page. Now, this might give somebody the sense that it's overwhelming, but it is divided into neat little packages. So I'm not as sure. It's very pretty. I mean, I think the design is quite attractive, but it might not be as seductive as that AP package that in a way is more bare and not as pretty. But maybe this seems like, oh, I don't have time for that right now. There's another interface to look at the exact same content in a very different graphical format. Let me just click that. Oh, there. Now that's that JavaScript. Sometimes you click and it doesn't do it. So these are the same stories, but laid out in a different way. And I think they must have gotten some feedback that people didn't know how to navigate in this one, so they made the other one. Okay, but this is much more pretty, and then is it more overwhelming or not? It's very pretty, right? So it's all one page. It's like a giant graphical interface to the story. And we're going to start with this. Because it's pretty short, if it'll play for us.
There's always tension. Tension makes us stronger.
I don't like that as much as an intro because I feel like it's a little too generic. It's pretty. It's very nice motion graphics, probably made with After Effects. And it does tell us one very important thing, but it's kind of buried in there. You know what I'm talking about? When I say one very important thing? Which thing?
Coal affects people.
More specific? Close?
Coal provides 45%.
45%, yes. Because they start, you know, with the solar, the wind, you know, these little numbers, and then they get up to this 45%, right? That's important. That's why we should care about coal. So their mission in this video is to tell us why should you care about this story. That is a smart thing. But I think they did not succeed. Because they show us like an Apple PowerBook and they make this sound like a Mac booting up, a boing, and like, why is, you know, is this about Apple? Is this an Apple story? And then they show us the pictures, solar 2% or whatever, and then they say coal 45%, and unfortunately it kind of got stuck for us, so you didn't quite get the effect. I don't know if it'll play if I go back so that you can just see that part. There we go. Let's see if it'll play smoothly. Now reload it once. Yeah. So that's nice. But I think that should have been first.
There's always tension.
And those are nice.
Tension makes us stronger.
But this too, because like you haven't seen these stories yet, and some guy's saying there's always tension. What? Tension about what? So I could complain about this for an hour. I could tell you like 500 things that are wrong with this as an intro, even though it's pretty. But it does not communicate well. The other one, even though it's 15 minutes long, communicated amazingly well. It was like victims are innocent and they die and they're part of this problem we've got, and you know, like you get emotionally attached. And this is this is by students, right? They don't know yet how to communicate well. They know how to use technology, but they don't know how to communicate. However, I'm watching my time. Don't worry, Joanne, I'm watching my time. This one. And there's other things. There's information graph. Oh, that's right. Yeah, let me not show you a video because we're a little short on time. Let me show you the information graph. This one works a little better. It has a student narrator, so she sort of sounds more like a student. They put very careful credits on each one, so the students can use them in their portfolios. But this one's pretty successful, I think.
It's already half ghost town. If coal is shut down in West Virginia, there will be nothing left here. Nothing.
When coal prices drop, it affects coal communities. After World War II, we no longer needed large coal supplies to fuel war activities, and prices began to fall. In 1968, the coal industry consolidated and prices began to rise again. In 1973, the U.S. steered away from higher-priced foreign oil and toward domestic energy sources. Suddenly, coal was worth more. More companies wanted to own mines, and that meant more jobs. When crude oil prices dropped in the 80s, the market was oversaturated with coal. Coal prices fell. After 2004, foreign exports increased, and the price of coal rebounded slightly, but it wasn't enough. Mines shut down, and towns boarded up. That's what happens when a community depends largely on one industry. Think about it. If the mine shuts down and people leave, you don't need shops, you don't need schools, you don't need hospitals. What's left? West Virginia produces the most coal in Appalachia, followed by Kentucky and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania relies on other industries in addition to coal. Kentucky and West Virginia depend mostly on coal. In terms of per capita income, Pennsylvania is ranked 19th in the nation. Kentucky is 47th, and West Virginia is 49th. In other words, Kentucky and West Virginia are among the very poorest states in the country.
And that communicated really well. It gave you facts and statistics without being boring. And the facts and statistics that it gave are essential to understanding this story that they're trying to tell about coal, about how towns and people who work in coal mining are affected by energy prices and global situations, and how a town that relies on coal for most of its income can rise or fall, can completely be destroyed by a low coal price, right? And they did, so it's like a motion information graphic with a narration that explains the numbers you're seeing in an easy to watch way. I think it's fast enough and it's short enough that you don't get bored, and yet you now know, and I don't expect you guys to know all 50 states, but you have an idea that they're going to talk about a state that is sorely, sadly affected by this coal business, partly because it's their major income. And you got that in, I think it's about a minute and a half. Sorry, this one doesn't have a timer bar on it. Oh good, so I have enough. So I have shown you, to review briefly, I have shown you a very focused, very visual story about victims that did not have information graphics. And then I showed you a story about the Japanese earthquake and nuclear disaster that had everything. It had maps, it had video, it had information graphics, it had interviews, it had text, it had the whole enchilada. And then this one has, it has kind of all those things, but it's about a smaller story, and it's got sort of this big sprawling interface, might be a little harder to use, although it's much prettier. And it's made by students. Now many of them are postgraduate students, right? They've got some training, but there are things in here that I think a professional would do differently, especially that intro. Now I'm going to show you a documentary project that's made by an independent guy named Jonathan Harris, who is like the most awesome person doing Flash today, because he does documentaries in Flash. So of course I love him because I love Flash. But his projects are kind of strange. Like, I mean, they're not like journalism, although they're true and they're real. They're about real things. And he's very inspiring. His previous story was called Whale Hunt. And if you haven't seen that, I mean, it's completely different, but it's also giant and weird like this. So if you read this just quickly, you get an idea what was his project. So in a way, you know, he's like an artist doing an art project. He goes to Bhutan, how cool is that? And then he interviews over 100 people. And he asks them 5 questions that are like the questions a visual art student would ask people. If they, you know, what's a good joke you know? What makes you happy? But it's tied to this idea that truly Bhutan focuses on, they're the country of happiness. That's their claim to fame. You know, they don't make coal, they make happiness. And you should come there and visit and give them your tourist dollars, because you can see how people are happy there. So Jonathan Harris goes there to make a project. And this is the front of the project. I opened some windows to make this fast. This is his personal website. It's number27.org. And if you want to know more about him, and he is quite interesting, you could look at him. Although he's not a journalist, he really is a programmer who learned how to tell stories. And somehow, although he might have started as a visual artist, I forget that part. But so when you enter the project, it looks like this. And when you roll around, it's got this cool flash interface thing. And okay, now this is like, okay, and I often think of my mom, who's 70-something, you know, as a user. My mom would be completely confused by this, and she would run away. You know, I mean, it wouldn't, you know, it would be intimidating to her. She's not a normal, you know, computer crazy person like you guys probably are. But when you go into anything, you get a sort of a loading bar that's cute to play with. Like, he always gives you these little toys, so you can roll over that for no good reason, while you wait for this incredibly high resolution photo to load, and the audio, which will start any minute now. I'm sure it will. Come on, load. Load for us, come on. I thought I preloaded this, but I guess it doesn't stay in memory. Come on. Oh, load for us. Usually it's faster than this. We should hear somebody talking right now. And the picture should resolve. Oh, the internet might be being bad to us at the moment. Somebody else in the building is showing a video somewhere. Oh, come on, load first. Oh.
Maybe we should sacrifice somebody to appease the gods of the internet.
Yes. See if for some reason another one will go faster. I only have one more thing to show you, which is faster than this, and it's already loaded, but I wish you could see this one. While we're waiting for that, let me show you one other thing inside the project. He also has, as far as interface, I mean, like, this is really easy to look at, right? The statement about the project. Artists always do that. They always make a statement about the project. What I'm going to show you, the statistics page is also like a good interface type of thing, I think, because it lets you browse around in a different way. If it'll load. Gosh, it's like the whole internet just died on us here. Like, even his statistics page loads really fast, and that's not loading. Network, where are you? Come on, internet. Connected. Ain't nothing loading. Okay. So, I'm going to be dead on that. So, sorry, let me skip ahead to, well, let's see, is there anything else I want to say about it? A couple of things about Harris's project. I think for journalism, we wouldn't want to duplicate it. It's too big, it's too intimidating, it's too artistic, but it is a documentary project that's true. So, you know, it is an act of journalism to produce this. But as far as a journalism organization investing in something like this, I think the return for investment is not really, it's not appropriate. But I think we can get a lot of inspiration from a project like this. And we can look at the kind of techniques that Jonathan Harris uses, and we can apply them to more suitable projects for regular journalism. Even though, yeah, like it's crack down on this here. Okay, yeah. I mean, usually these load in about 10 seconds, even on a kind of marginal connection, but something just went wrong here. So the last thing that I wanted to show you, and we'll come back to this. If we hear voice, I'll come back to it because that'll mean it loaded. This one, a lot of people wouldn't call it multimedia. They would just say it's a graphic. It's from The Guardian, which is a great newspaper in England that does some really great multimedia and always great journalism. I recommend them without reservation. And last March, they built this excellent flash timeline that is not designed like any timeline I ever saw before. So that was my first excitement. It's like, finally, a new design for a timeline. How cool. And they did it in March. I'll show you how they kept updating it. And it's got such a neat interface. So like when you roll over one of these little icon things, you get a nice tiny chunk of information about it. And even, let's see, and that is a sans serif font, and even though it's small, it's quite easy to read. And if you click on the, whoops, stay there. Oh, if you click on the icon, that's right. In a separate window, well, which probably won't open for us now. Oh, maybe the internet's back. That opened. In a separate window, you get the full actual article that they published at the time, but you don't lose where you are on the timeline, so you can go back to that. So each of these icons, and they are colored differently, okay? So this orange color is there was a political move. This green color is there was a protest or a response to a protest. And then there's a maroon or dark red color, and blue ones we'll see later. So this was the very beginning of the Arab Spring, and this is like the best way. You want to see if you were sleeping and you missed the Arab Spring, the entire story is right here on this timeline, the entire thing. And did you notice this? Is this cool? And they're in alphabetical order, which makes the information comprehension really easy. Like anybody can see that at a glance. Like you look at it, you're not really thinking about that. But if you say, well, I wonder if Kuwait is in here. And you're like, oh, look, they're alphabetical. Okay, it's right there. Like you find it really fast, right? So it's organized very, very well. And like this, it's really easy to see that and map that to these. And so this is Tunisia, right? It all started, the whole thing started in 2010 on 19 December, right, in Tunisia. And so the icon that you're on lights up that strip, and that strip corresponds to a country. So if we go further back and we just roll over and see how it pops up, it's so nice. So I'm not clicking anything. The interface on this is just fantastic because again, I think anybody, even my mom, could figure out how to use this without reading instructions, right? And your mom might be all computer literate, so if she is, don't think of her. But think of somebody you know who's totally clueless, like can't play video games, you know, runs away from technology. When you're looking at something like this, think of that person and think about how much work would she have to do in order to use this. And if the answer is kind of a lot of work, then you should reconsider that design. That's my advice about that. And I didn't even start rolling it yet, because that might be a little slow if the internet's being naughty to us. But it's got, and this is the one thing, some people don't find the navigation right away, even though it's nice and big. And it's like, oh, well, what was happening here, right? And it's so nice that you can just roll over it one at a time. And they pop up a little faster most of the time. But we're having a little lag today, I think. right? So you can just like roll along on this strip of Egypt and see dates and times and places. And if you want, for some reason, you want more detail, once you click this once, you realize it doesn't mess up your experience. It opens in a new window, you keep your place, you know, you can come back very easily, so you're safe. You're free to explore these, because once you try one, you'll find out, oh good, it doesn't like ruin my, you know, it doesn't lose where I was. And so you can go all the way up to the end of the year. They stopped updating this, was it at the end of the year? Oops, wrong way. Up to the top. But they were updating it. Like I said, when I first found this, it was March. And they updated it all year. And like they don't have to go in and modify the Flash graphic because they made this with code. You know, they designed it with you know, vector graphics in Flash. But the items and the links and the text are all from ActionScript and XML files. So once they built it, they never had to open the SWF again. You guys work with Flash, right? Yeah, so they never had to open the SWF again. They just had to update their XML. So it automatically generated itself from them adding text programming to the XML file. And that also, I mean, that's the way we should build everything, right? So we can update it without going into freaky interfaces and dealing with like movie clips and all that junk. Right? So, I mean, this is one of the most brilliant Flash things I've ever seen. I love it so much. And I was so happy that they kept updating it. They updated it very, very conscientiously up until the end of the year. And then I guess they decided, well, you know, the Arab Spring has now lasted a whole year. and we'll just stop and go on, right? But so it's finished now. But please do remember that it started in the 3rd month of the year, and they continued to update it faithfully and meticulously for the next 9 months until the end of the year. So I think it's quite nice. Let's see if we can have one last look at the people in Bhutan who are not loading for us. Oh, they're so not loading. Why is that? Maybe his server's having a problem. Maybe it's not us. Although the Flash graphic's a little slow too. Yeah. Oh, wait. Oh no. That was just, sorry, that's another interface there that you can go down. He's got all these like little cool interface things that you can just roll over. So I really recommend that you play with Balloons for Bhutan, even though right now it won't load for us. Because especially if, you know, when you're on a faster connection and you can listen and explore at your own pace, like not depend on me, it is really fun to play with. And so I have made a document for you guys so that you have these links. And it is at this URL. So it's a Google Doc with 5 links that you can just click. It's 2 pages. The top page has my bio on it, but the second page has the links. I'll show it to you as soon as you write it down. You have to use the capital letters, okay? So use the capitalization that you see, because if you don't, it won't work. It's a case-sensitive URL. But that URL will take you to the Google Doc, and on page 2 there's 5 links, so you can just click them, and they're listed in the order I showed them to you. Would you like to make any comments or ask anything about anything I showed so far? Does everybody have the URL? Okay, so let me switch over to actual. So it looks like that, right? The top of it, when you go into it, it has like what I'm doing here today. And then page 2 has the links, and those are all the ones I showed you. So the victims, Japan, cold, the balloons, which you really must look at, and the cool timeline. Well, thanks very much. I think now you guys are going to show me something, right?